And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today I'm talking about Deeper and Darker, which is an expansion for Cutthroat Caverns. And if you haven't seen Cutthroat Caverns or played it, I would recommend you check out that review first before watching this one of this expansion. But it's the first of currently 3 expansions for Cutthroat Caverns. And honestly, it's the smallest and maybe perhaps the most unsatisfying. That's not to say that it's bad. It certainly introduces more and more monsters, and it introduces character powers, but doesn't seem to have a lot of oomph to it. But if you really enjoy the game, it does give it more variety. Here's the stuff that you can find in Deeper and Darker. More monsters, more prestige tokens, more tokens for specific monsters, a few generic tokens, and then another heads or tails marker. Some special powers for each of the main characters. But before we do anything else, let's look at some of these monsters. Now, the 15 monsters that are included in this deck, or included in this expansion, are some interesting variations on the original ones. I thought the original ones were very good, but there are some really good monsters in here. The Paradox monster, for example, all the attacks done on him are done in reverse order. The Ogre's challenge, you don't really do a fight, or I guess you do fight him, but it's more like a poker match than anything else. That's an interesting twist. The Executioner, he attacks players who flip heads when he attacks. So I guess there's some randomness in there, and he's just a big, bad, tough guy. The Cursed Goblin is one of the more interesting people in the set, because basically every other attack on him heals him. And that really changes the focus of how the game is played, because players are trying to figure out, am I the every other attack? What if this person doesn't actually attack the Cursed Goblin? He's not very strong and definitely doesn't give many victory points when you beat him, but he's a real pain in the neck and therefore a lot of fun. Chaos, you set someone else's attack card instead of your own. And so that way you're playing an attack card for someone else, and that leads to some really funny, interesting situations. Tentakill has tentacles that attack you, and they wrap themselves around you and continue to fight you. And if you destroy them, they're worth nothing. Real pain in the neck, him. And then there's a whole bunch of other monsters in the game. Now, I guess the real point of this expansion, though, are the character powers. Each character has a one-time use that they can use their character ability, and they turn the card over when it's done. For example, this one here allows the elf to attack without being attacked by creatures this encounter, and no one else can target him with action cards. This is a very powerful one. You can only use it once per game. Most of the special abilities are used once per game, and if they play them during a non-bonus round, which means one of the earlier rounds, their attacks are not able to be counterable. Unfortunately, his card does not say that, and I don't think the powers are equal. Some people's powers just feel a lot better than others. But it is a way to differentiate them. Now the wizard, she feels a little bit more like a wizard. Now the characters still are generic, and I'm not sure that this adds a ton to the game. You can play with or without these cards, and I don't think it's going to really matter that much. So the expansion is mostly here for the new monsters. There's really not a lot to talk about here. I suppose I could go into a detailed description of what each monster does, but I mean, I told you a few of them, and there's more tokens involved in the game. And I guess the biggest part of this is the character abilities. These are interesting, but they're not going to be game changers. Well, I mean, they can be, but they're one-time special uses. I don't know. I was looking for maybe something a little bit different, maybe a permanent power that characters had. It's a good expansion for variety. I do like the fact that it gives you more prestige tokens, which you'll need. But of the 3 expansions for the original game, this is the weakest one of the set, and I would get it last of the 3.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.